Let me tell you a little secret. Perfectionism is not about being perfect. It's about being scared. Scared that if it's not flawless, people will judge you, laugh at you, or worse, ignore you. So instead of starting, you freeze. Or you tweak and refine endlessly, telling yourself you're just making it better. But let's be real, you're stuck. You've convinced yourself that if it's not perfect, it's not worth doing at all. Sound familiar? Yeah, you're not alone. You've probably got this amazing idea sitting in the back of your mind right now. Maybe it's a book, a business idea, or even just redecorating your room. But instead of doing it, you're in research mode. You're watching YouTube tutorials, bookmarking articles, creating Pinterest boards, doing everything except the actual thing. Because starting means it could be messy, it could flop, and you're not about that life. And when you do start, perfectionism is still lurking. That draft you wrote, it's never quite ready to share. That video you filmed needs more editing. That business plan, you just need to adjust one more detail. And then another, and another. Months go by, and you're still stuck in this weird limbo of almost finished but not quite. Then comes the comparison trap. You scroll through social media and see other people out there crushing it, launching businesses, writing books, going viral, and you start thinking, wow, they're so polished. If I can't do it at that level, why even bother? But here's the kicker. They didn't start perfect either. You're seeing their highlight reel, not their rough drafts and embarrassing missteps. And let's not forget about perfectionism disguised as productivity. Planning, organizing, and researching feel productive, but they're really just safe zones. You're busy, but you're not making progress. And when you're not making progress, you're stuck in this endless loop of feeling like a failure even though you're working hard. It's a brutal cycle. So yeah, perfectionism isn't about high standards, it's about fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being enough. But here's the truth. Perfection is a lie, and it's time to let it go. Here's the thing nobody tells you. Good enough is often more than enough. The idea that you need to be perfect to succeed is nonsense. In fact, trying to be perfect is probably holding you back more than anything else. When you let go of perfection, you give yourself permission to actually finish things. That half-written blog post sitting in your drafts, publish it. That business idea you've been overthinking for months, launch it. Done is better than perfect. Momentum beats perfection every time. Because when you finish something, even if it's a little rough around the edges, you feel a sense of accomplishment, and that accomplishment builds confidence. Here's another wild truth. Perfection is a moving target. What you think is perfect today will probably seem outdated or flawed in a year. So why stress over it? The goal isn't to get it perfect, it's to get it done and improve as you go. Every successful person you admire didn't nail it on the first try. They got there by starting, adjusting, and learning along the way. And let's talk about progress over perfection. Every time you create something, you get better. Even if the first version is rough, the next one will be better because you learned something. Perfectionism stops you from growing because you're too scared to make those early mistakes. But those mistakes are the whole point. They're how you improve. Here's the ironic part. Imperfection is actually more relatable than perfection. When you see someone who's a little messy, a little flawed, you connect with them. Nobody wants to follow someone who seems like they have it all together because it feels fake. Your slightly imperfect work, it's authentic, it's real, and that's way more powerful than a perfectly polished facade. Success doesn't come from perfection, it comes from consistency. And consistency means showing up, putting it out there, and trusting that you'll improve along the way. It means letting yourself be seen even when it's not perfect. Because the people who succeed aren't the ones who get it perfect, they're the ones who keep showing up. So stop waiting for perfect, hit publish, press send. Put it out there, already good enough. And good enough is where success actually starts. If you've been stuck in perfectionism mode for a while, breaking out of it is going to feel weird at first. You've trained your brain to believe that only perfect work is acceptable, so when you start letting go of that, you might feel like you're slacking. But you're not. You're just learning to work smarter, not harder. Start by setting a good enough deadline. Perfectionists love open-ended projects because it means they can keep tweaking forever. So give yourself a hard stop. If you're working on a project, tell yourself, I'm finishing this by Friday, no matter what. When the deadline hits, you're done. Publish it, share it, move on. This forces you to stop overthinking and actually complete something. And that consistency is why they succeed. It's better to put out regular, good work than to spend forever trying to create one perfect thing. Done beats perfect every time. You also need to simplify. Perfectionists tend to overcomplicate everything because they're trying to cover all possible angles. Don't. Focus on one thing at a time. If you're writing a blog post, don't stress about the design and the SEO and the perfect headline all at once. Just write. Finish the draft, then tackle the other stuff one piece at a time. The 80-20th rule is a lifesaver here. This rule basically says that 80% of your results come from 20% of your effort. Figure out what the most important 20% of your project is and focus on that first. If you're building a business, that might mean focusing on customer service and product quality rather than wasting time trying to create the perfect Instagram feed. Prioritize what actually matters and let the small stuff slide. And finally, start sharing imperfect work on purpose. Post that rough draft, share that unedited video, release that project before you feel ready. The more you do this, the more you realize that the world doesn't end when you share something that's less than perfect. People don't care nearly as much as you think they do, and the ones who matter will actually respect you more for putting yourself out there. Here's the thing. When you start to embrace good enough, you create space for creativity and growth. When you stop stressing about getting it perfect, you free up energy to actually experiment and have fun. Perfectionism is exhausting. Letting go of it is like breathing for the first time. Letting go of perfectionism isn't just about productivity. It's about peace of mind. When you're stuck in perfectionism, your brain is constantly in overdrive. You're thinking about all the things that could go wrong, all the ways you might fail, and all the reasons why you're not ready yet. That's mentally draining. But when you stop chasing perfection, you give yourself permission to relax, and that changes everything. When you let go of perfection, you start finishing things, and that builds confidence. Confidence doesn't come from getting it right every time. It comes from proving to yourself that you can handle whatever happens, even if it's not perfect. Every time you finish something, you send your brain a message that says, "Hey, I can do this." That's how you build real self-trust. Your stress levels will also drop like crazy. Perfectionism creates this constant background noise of not good enough. But when you start accepting that good enough really is enough, that noise starts to fade. You stop obsessing over details that don't matter. You stop worrying about other people's opinions, and you start focusing on what actually feels good and meaningful to you. Creativity thrives when you're not chasing perfection. When you're stuck in perfectionism, you're afraid to take risks because you don't want to fail. But when you give yourself permission to make mistakes, you open the door for real creativity. You start trying new things, experimenting, and coming up with ideas you never would have considered if you were stuck in perfection mode. Creativity comes from freedom, not from pressure. And here's the best part. When you stop trying to be perfect, you actually become more successful. People are drawn to authenticity, not perfection. Nobody connects with someone who seems flawless because it feels fake. But when you show up as your real, imperfect self, you become relatable. People trust you more. They root for you more. And that's how you create real success, not by being perfect, but by being real. Letting go of perfectionism is like finally taking off a pair of too tight shoes. You suddenly realize how much lighter and freer you feel. And once you feel that freedom, you'll never want to go back. So stop waiting for perfect. Start now with whatever you have. Trust that good enough is actually more than enough. And watch how everything starts to shift. So here's what you need to do next. Watch this video again, but this time, take notes. Seriously. Jot down the parts that hit home, the tips that made you go, "Ah, that's what I've been doing wrong." And don't just let those notes sit there, put them into action. Pick one strategy, one small step, and actually try it today. Progress starts when you stop thinking about it and start doing it. And hey, if this helped even a little bit, hit that subscribe button. I've got more life guides and little tips coming your way. Stuff to help you stop overthinking, start moving, and actually feel like you've got a handle on things. And speaking of getting your life together, check out this video right here on how to start your day right. Trust me, it'll set you up for success before you even have your morning coffee. All right, you've got this. Now go take some messy, imperfect action. It's already good enough.